Thank you. It's a gentle way to start this morning. I know the rows will open, but I wasn't sure the gates were going to open, so. Well, good morning to everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or, as we say in short, I need you to be loud this morning, create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Thank you. So welcome, as always, to each and every one of you. We begin by embracing all that you come with this morning, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs and background and lifestyle and experiences and differences, all those things that help make you who you are. By the way, I'm going to parse that just a little bit this morning. I sort of intentionally say that list, right? Your uniqueness, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences. There was a time in this country at some point where all of those were frowned upon. And most churches were the sort of places that frowned upon them. And I particularly think about that term lifestyle, which was code for a long time for a sort of anti-gay or anti-GBLT ideology. And so, you know, when we say those, when I say them in each Sunday morning, even though it's become part of our ritual, it's never really ritualized. This is a really important thing for us to say because as Unitarian Universalists, this really is fundamental to what our religion is about. This sort of embracing of our differences, our different ideas, right? Our different beliefs, our different lifestyles, our backgrounds, our differences, all of those things that traditionally have segregated us from one another, or given us at least what some have believed is an excuse to frown upon others or to segregate ourselves from others. So that's why when we welcome one another, I like to welcome us with those words. So welcome to everyone. Welcome to those in the room. Welcome to the many of you who are streaming with us as well this morning. Great to have all of you here. I did want to begin just a little bit this morning. I don't have any church announcements, but I know we're probably all deeply disturbed by the perhaps fatal attack, but the terrible attack on Sir Salman Rushdie this week after decades of surviving the fatwa against him, which has never been removed. Although Rushdie is not a Unitarian Universalist that I know of, he certainly carries that spirit of liberalism within him and has been a symbol of the need in our world for tolerance and for freedom of expression, especially when there are those who cling to their own ideology so firmly that they don't believe anybody else should be allowed to express theirs without demonizing or trying to otherwise destroy their character, their livelihoods, and in his case, his life. So we all have our own way of contemplating these sort of terrors in our lives, in our world. So whatever it is we do as Unitarians, whether it's pray or meditate or think a good thought for his health and his recovery, I wanted to mention his name before us this morning as somebody we have a kinship with and somebody that we are concerned about. So let's take a moment, as always, by greeting one another this morning. feel free to get up if you want and walk around the room or wave across the room, whatever works for you. Okay, more time to visit during social hour between services, but let's move forward now by lighting our chalice. The chalice, of course, is the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
As Unitarian Universalists, we have a goal in common with most of humankind, a lifelong search for truth and meaning. There are many paths towards discipline and self-awareness, which our former minister, Dr. William Harper Hauff, described in his 1989 book, Infinity in Your Hand. Today, we'll hear from Reverend Todd Eckloff about an interesting Japanese practice, Aikido, which arose as a peaceful spiritual discipline in the 1920s, while Japan was embarking on a path towards authoritarianism, Pearl Harbor, and defeat in World War II. There's a wide range of spiritual disciplines, including meditation, which Hauff described as the quieting of the mind so that one can hear what is already there. Others he described are the Zen arts, including flower arranging and swordsmanship, Native American rituals, Sufi dancing, journal writing, Jungian dream work, and Tai Chi, a martial art which Hauff practiced throughout his life. He writes that Tai Chi, if performed diligently, gives its practitioners the pliability of a child, the health of a lumberjack, and the peace of mind of a sage. In his summary of these powerful practices, Howe said it was his conviction that all persons interested in spiritual growth should have a discipline that is central to their daily life.
For our first song together, we'll sing "Oh Brother Sun." It is 1066 in the Teal book. Oh, good, we do have it. Thank you, Todd. Please rise if you are willing and able. Oh, brother sun, you bring us light, we'll shining round in fiery might. Oh, sister moon, you heal and bless, your beauty shines in tenderness. Oh, brother wind, you sweep the hills, your mighty breath both fashions and fills. Oh, sister water, you cleanse and flow through streams and rivers in ice and snow. Oh, brother fire, you warm the night with all your dancing colored light. Oh, sister earth, you feed all things, all birds, all creatures, all scales and wings. Oh, sister death, you meet us here and take us to our good so near. Oh, God of life, we give you praise for all your creatures, for all your ways.
Thank you, and thanks to Mary Ann for filling in as our song leader today. Appreciate it. We are now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds. And I will begin as we have been for some time now, for too long, on behalf of the people in Ukraine and the rest of that area in the world that are being impacted by the violence there. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of those you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And we now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and our mission to the larger world. Thank you, Maura. Time for our story for all ages, and as always, I brought a friend. I hope he's a familiar face to you. One of my favorite friends. This is Winnie the Pooh. Hello, Pooh. Hello, everyone. They didn't say hello back. Thank you. So you're a long way from the 100-acre wood today, my friend. What brings you all the way to Spokane? The river. The river. You came to see the river? No, you see, I was looking at a fellow who looked a lot like me in the water, and I fell in, and he carried me all the way to Spokane. I see. I think that fellow in the water was probably your own reflection, Pooh. Oh, bother. Well, he got me all wet. But since I'm here, I thought I'd come by and say hello, which I've already said, so no use saying it again. That's probably true. But I'm glad you went with the flow, I should say. Because it's always great to see you, and it just so happens I was just thinking of you this morning. You were? Yes. I'm going to be speaking about Aikido in a little while, and was reminded of a book about you called The Tao of Pooh by Benjamin Hoff. I don't think I know what Aikido is, but it reminds me very much of cookie dough. Of cookie dough. Yes, it tastes a lot like honey, which is my favorite food. Yes, everyone knows how much you like honey, Pooh, but I was thinking of you today because of your connection to the philosophy of Taoism. You mean Taoism? No, not Taoism, Taoism. It's a belief system from ancient China that says things that don't make sense a lot of times. I say things that don't make sense a lot of times. Yes, you do. And one of my favorite examples is the song you sometimes sing about Coddleston pie. You remember it? Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie, a fly can't bird, but a bird can fly. Ask me a riddle and I'll reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie. Well, then I think there's a couple of tra-la-las and a rum-tum-tiddle-um-trum. Then you continue with Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie. A fish can't whistle and neither can I. Ask me a riddle and I'll reply. Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie. Hey, very good, Pooh, even if I do say so myself. Thank you, but what does it have to do with cookie dough and honey? Well, nothing and everything, I suppose. Well, I'm confused as usual. Yes, that's okay, because that's what Taoism is about, and what the song you just sang is about. Well, I thought it might be, even if I don't know why. Yeah, not knowing the answer is the whole point of the song you just sang. It is. It is. Yes, if I ask you what 2 plus 2 is, and you answer me with Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie, it makes no sense, which can help me question what you might mean, and it's only by questioning what we don't understand that we get to discover new truths. What do you think of that? I think I have a headache. It might be time for me to get back to the 100-acre wood as soon as I can find my reflection. Well, I'm not sure where your reflection is right now, Pooh, but if you'll hang out until the service is over, I know where we can find some cookie dough ice cream covered with honey. Then I'll help you get back home. How does that sound? Coddleston, Coddleston, Coddleston pie. I think that's a yes. Thank you.
As we begin our silent meditation, please relax, breathe deeply, and let us reflect on the words of poet William Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in a wild flower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour.
I'm going to read just a couple of brief statements from The Art of Peace, which is one way to translate the word Aikido. I prefer, as you'll find out later, the way of harmony, but almost synonymous. These are the collected sayings of the founder of Aikido, Master Morihei Ueshiba. I'm just going to read a couple of brief ones. To practice properly the way of harmony, you must calm the spirit and return to the source. Cleanse the body and spirit by removing all malice, selfishness, and desire. Be ever grateful for the gifts received from the universe, your family, Mother Nature, and your fellow human beings. And then simple sentence that I think our leaders at the UUA might benefit from hearing. Every sturdy tree that towers over human beings owes its existence to a deeply rooted core. Nora, thank you so much. I always enjoy when you get to showcase your incredible talent for us, and that was a magnificent piece for doing so. We're very fortunate to have you playing for us on Sundays.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
So as a young man in my 20s, I became a practitioner of Aikido for several years until work and kids and other priorities prevented me from continuing. But I'd never forgotten my basic training, although this assumption has never been put to the test, and I expect it never will. Aikido for me was never about learning self-defense. I was attracted to the philosophy of it, which, like its movements, is based upon the natural rhythms and patterns of life. Learning Aikido does not require us to practice contorting our bodies into unnatural positions until we're able to do astonishing and unnatural feats like jumping 6 feet in the air or breaking blocks of wood and concrete with our fist or running sideways up walls and whipping our opponent with our long braided ponytails. For the martial art fans among us. Aikido means simply to live in harmony with nature, and its movements mirror the natural motions and positions all of us make as we go about our lives. Aikido training is therefore more about practicing what the body is already capable of than about learning new positions. Again, Aikido is often translated into English as the way of harmony, although since the suffix do refers to a place where something is practiced, it could as easily be understood to mean the practice of harmony. That's an insightful way to think about harmony as something that we should practice. As our species knows all too well, living in harmony with nature doesn't always come natural to us. Working instead to bend nature to our wills, we have created one of the worst and most threatening periods of mass extinction and climate change in Earth's 4.5 billion year history. To be clear, nature itself is not always harmonious. It is as much the nature of nature to either force species to adapt to its own changes and rhythms, and of various species to shape nature to suit their needs. Kali Ma is a Hindu goddess in its mythology akin to our notion of Mother Nature, only instead of being purely creative, she also has a terribly destructive side. Hurricanes, tornadoes, earthquakes, forest fires, floods, droughts, plagues, and diseases are among her natural disasters. So sometimes Mother Nature works against us, and sometimes she works for us. When she's working for us, and we're working for her, we are in harmony, which is what's happening when we experience the calm, and the awe of being by the sea, or on a lake, or in the forest, or the mountains. And that is what Aikido is about, the practice of living in harmony with nature. The normal Aikido stance, for example, called Hanmi, is to stand with one's body slightly, one side of one's body, slightly more forward than the other side, with the front foot cocked slightly outward for optimal balance, which, if you think about it, is how we stand, right? Now, when I'm at the pulpit, I'm square. And we don't usually stand this way, but we speak from a podium, we do, and thank goodness we have a podium to help us find the balance we need. Otherwise, we'd want to have one foot just a little bit forward. So during training, students face each other in this normal stance, the same way you'd be facing each other if you were standing talking to each other in social hour. taking turns practicing a variety of moves. But all of its moves are rooted in just 4 basic moves, all of which also represent philosophical mindsets about living in harmony. Standing in a natural position when confronted by an opponent enables us to do so with poise, calm, balance, firmness, and receptivity. But this is also a useful mindset when facing many things in life. As with Stoicism, such a position reminds us that resisting, running away, or pushing back against life's challenges is often futile and only makes matters worse. The hand-me position, which is the most comfortable and stable position to be in, is about meeting life's challenges by facing them with calm and poise and acceptance. But I'll talk about how Aikido's 4 basic movements help us with what comes next after we've positioned ourselves well to face whatever is coming at us. But first I want to mention something else about this philosophy that sets it apart from other so-called martial arts. Although it is practiced in a club among other practitioners, the way of harmony is a personal practice. It's always a personal practice. It is a self-discipline. It's about repeating basic motions, not merely so that we can defend ourselves if we get into a fight, God forbid, but so our bodies begin to move in harmony with nature, and that beginning there, those principles seep into our minds and our psyches so that we will be in harmony with nature in body, mind, and heart. This is why there are not Aikido tournaments in which participants compete against each other for trophies and titles. It's also why Aikido has only white and black belts to discourage competition and ranking amongst its students. For this reason, a student may still wear a white belt for many years of practice. Nor is Aikido violent in its motions. Every move is meant to bring one's opponent back into harmony with nature. In some self-defense systems, for example, one's opponent, one might take an opponent's hand, for example, and bend it backward. And it could even snap it and break it and harm that individual. In Aikido, it would be to let that hand, take that hand and move it forward as it's akin to do. And you can very gently guide somebody with just the easiest bit of pressure. So that's a big difference. It's based on the natural movements. In Aikido, the way of harmony, in most clubs, students are forbidden from ever using Aikido to harm others. That's one of the rules of being part of a club. As its founder, Master Morihi Ueshiba, taught us, warriorship is none other than the vitality that sustains all life, and that the only enemy to defeat is the malice, selfishness, and desire within our own souls and bodies. For as soon as you concern yourself with the good and the bad of your fellows, he said, you create an opening in your heart for maliciousness to enter. Testing, competing with, and criticizing others weakens and defeats you. Morihi Ueshiba was born in Japan in 1883 to a respected family. He was the great-grandson of a famous samurai warrior. And despite being an unusually frail child, he eventually became a national war hero himself. Having lived through both world wars, including the atomic bombing of his own country, Master Ueshiba came to despise violence and to understand its futility. There are getting to be more and more in the military who are reckless and indiscriminate with their power, he lamented. They have forgotten the importance of helping people, of relieving suffering. A bunch of fools They strut about displaying their violence, their narrow-mindedness, and wanton destruction of life. What idiots to go against nature. So he turned down a request from the Japanese military to train soldiers and instead became a farmer, having come to believe that cultivating plants is the best form of Budo, of martial arts. The way of Budo, he said, is to put new life into the original universal life force which gives birth to all things. Harmony, love, and courtesy are essential to true Budo. But the people who are in power these days are only interested in playing with weapons. They misrepresent Budo as a tool for power struggles, violence, and destruction, and they want to use me toward this end. I'm tired of this stupidity. I have no intention of allowing myself to become their tool. I see no other way but to enter into retreat. Perhaps his greatest student, Satomi Sensei, who introduced Aikido to the United States, also a World War II survivor, mirrored his master's statements when he said, "Abiding deep within his heart was the belief that the path of Budo is the path of compassion, that the task of a true samurai is to make the world fertile for peace and to protect all life." So Aikido, translated as the way of harmony, isn't about learning to fight, but learning not to fight. The way of harmony is invincible, Master Ueshiba said, because it contends with nothing. Aikido is also an outgrowth of Japan's pantheistic naturalism. Master Ueshiba practiced Shintoism, Japan's indigenous religion centering on the veneration of Kami, a nature spirit believed to dwell in all things. This is why he retreated from war and violence into nature, and why he taught his students, those who practice the way of harmony must protect the domain of Mother Nature, the divine reflection of creation, and keep her lovely and fresh. Warriorship gives birth to natural beauty. The subtle techniques of a warrior arise as naturally as the appearance of spring, summer, autumn, and winter. Warriorship is none other than the vitality that sustains all life. He also said, now and again it is necessary to seclude yourself among deep mountains and hidden valleys to restore your link to the source of life. And he told his followers to create each day anew by clothing yourself with heaven and earth, bathing yourself with wisdom and love, and placing yourself in the heart of Mother Nature. The three Japanese characters making up this word, Aikido, include I, which is the image of a group of people coming together under one roof, representing something like harmony or balance or blending or peace. In Ki, the image of a stream or river bubbling up from a rice bed, meaning something like life force or breath of life or vitality. And Do, the image of a man walking down a road, meaning something like way or path, art or practice. So this is what Aikido is, the path or art or practice of being in harmony, peace, or balance with life, universal energy, Mother Nature. That's what the word means. And it is because of this underlying philosophy that I still consider myself an Aikido student, even though I have not been part of a club or practiced its physical movements in many years. There is a saying in Aikido, wooden sword, metal sword, makes no difference. To understand this, it helps to know that all Aikido moves are based on the movements of samurai sword fighters. Although practitioners don't hold swords or use swords, every movement of one's hands and arms and legs are reminiscent of one who does. To understand this connection, Aikido students do sometimes practice by holding a bokken, a wooden sword. But the real point here is that Aikido is a spiritual practice. It's not about real sword fighting or even real fist fighting. The movements are meant rather to help our bodies connect with a deeper inner experience of being in harmony with nature, which includes the care and compassion of all beings and all of life. Having a real sword or a wooden sword or no sword at all makes no difference. Now, the last time I practiced Aikido was in 2008, when I hit the mat in the wrong way and injured my rotator cuff. And while healing, I had a dream in which a merchant offered me a choice of whichever sword I wanted from his collection of rare and priceless swords. And after examining each of them, the man was surprised that I asked only for a bokken. He recommended a beautiful, shiny, razor-sharp, double-bladed sword instead. Really, the wooden sword is fine, I assured him. It's all I need. After all, who am I ever going to fight? He seemed pleased with my decision, nodded in agreement, and handed me my bokken. And I awoke from this dream to my sore shoulder, realizing my training days were over for good, but that I would continue to practice Aikido for the rest of my days. So with all of this background, I'll now say a little bit more about the 4 basic moves Aikido is based on and how the philosophy behind them applies to life in general. The first of these, once you have taken that proper stance, which you do so naturally, the stance of poise, stability, and openness, is called irimi. Irimi, which means entering. So rather than avoiding or denying or fleeing the challenges before us, irimi seeks to overcome them by moving toward them instead of away from them. If you think about it, if you were in a sword fight, or maybe you weren't, you were confronted by somebody with a sword, the safest place is right here at the tip, just beyond the reach of the tip of that sword, right? So, as a person were to come towards you, you need to back up. And you keep backing up and backing up and backing up until you're exhausted or you run out of room. Nowhere else to go. So the other approach is to enter into it. They raise the sword and you walk right up. Well, now you're also out of reach of the sword. So your opponent has to back up, and you keep moving forward until they are exhausted or run out of room. So it's a very simple metaphor of moving in to the challenges so they don't overcome us. A great example of this was when President Ronald Reagan was running for re-election in 1984. There was much concern then about his age. Reagan was already 69 when elected in 1980, the oldest president in history up to that point. And it was expected that his age would be brought up again in 1984 by his Democratic challenger, Walter Mondale. But Reagan, who was already in his 70s by now, was ready for it. And when asked if he thought age was an issue in the election, he responded, "I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I'm not going to exploit for political purposes my opponent's youth and inexperience." And everybody laughed, including Walter Mondale. And I think that was the moment that Ronald Reagan cinched his re-election. And by the way, that question was put to rest. So he walked right into it. That's irimi. That's what it means to enter into our challenges. A lot of times we get defensive and we want to argue with somebody who is confronting us about our own beliefs, and And instead of denying them and defending them, you can just say, yeah, that is exactly what I'm saying. Yes, that's what I agree with. Morihei Ueshiba said, one should be prepared to receive 99% of an enemy's attack and stare death right in the face in order to illuminate the path. That's the direction of the path forward. Don't look upon this world with fear and loathing, he said. Bravely face whatever the gods offer. Each day of human life contains joy and anger, pain and pleasure, darkness and light, growth and decay. Each moment is etched with nature's grand design. Do not try to deny or oppose the cosmic order of things. Be grateful even for hardship, setbacks, and bad people. Dealing with such obstacles is an essential part of training in the way of harmony. Failure is the key to success. Each mistake teaches us something. The second fundamental Aikido move is called Tenkan, which means turning. This occurs when, instead of directly confronting a challenger, when attacked, one simply turns. Simple pivoting of the feet so that you're standing in the opposite direction. And this puts you in a good position to throw your opponent off balance. So if an opponent is coming at me from one direction and I simply pivot, my opponent would end up in front of me, and we'd both be looking in the same direction, just by a simple turn. And this is the posture of the willingness to look at things from somebody else's position, which throws people off balance when we're willing to do that. When we're willing to say, yeah, I want to understand where you're coming from and what you're talking about. May not end up agreeing, but at least I'm willing to genuinely turn and look from your perspective. Another wonderful life metaphor for living life. Morihei Ueshiba said about this, move like a beam of light, fly like lightning, strike like thunder, whirl in circles around a stable center. It does not mean being a pushover or not standing firm when our values are in question, but it does mean being able to change positions and to consider the perspective of others, which is much harder to do than said. The third move, Shionagi, which just sounds pretty to me, it always has, Shionagi, translates as four-corner throw. And like it sounds, it is the practice, in practice, it's a move that takes an opponent off balance by quickly moving in what ends up being all four directions. So I'm going to step away from the mic. I'm going to demonstrate this, okay? But if you imagine, well, let's not imagine. Let's just say this is my bokken, okay? But I don't have one in my hands. But this is the position we sort of stand in. Okay? So I'm going to start in this position, and I'm just going to do a four-corner turn, okay? I'm not going to. It's okay, you're fine. So it would just literally be. So if you imagined a sword, right? If you imagined a sword, somebody would do it, you know. So that's how the movements reflect samurai techniques. But you would do is just do it freehand and. And so just as fluid as it sounds, it should be a fluid motion of complete turning in all four directions. In fact, it's when done properly, it's a full 360, right, around the world. So it's important to remember, again, that Aikido is not meant to injure others, but to discharge harmful energy by redirecting it, and hopefully bringing one's opponent back into harmony with the universe. And symbolically and psychologically speaking, Shionagi means more than just looking at things from your opponent's position, as Tenkan does, but looking at everything from every position, from many positions, many angles, and being open to the many people around the world with different ways and different ideas. It's about keeping an open mind and having a cosmopolitan attitude. That's the four-corner turn, the psychological four-corner turn. Master Ueshiba said, "Always keep your mind as bright and clear as the vast sky, the highest peak, and the deepest ocean, empty of all limiting thoughts. For when we get locked into one way of looking at things, we limit ourselves to other possibilities and to the nature of life itself, which has many ways of thinking and being." Master Ueshiba taught us that each and every master, regardless of era and place, heard the call and attained harmony with heaven and earth. There are many paths leading to the top of Mount Fuji, but there is only one summit: love. This is why he also said, Aikido is the religion that is not a religion. It perfects and completes all religions. The way of harmony that I practice has room for each of the world's 8 million gods, and I cooperate with all of them. The God of peace is very great and enjoins all that is divine and enlightened in every land. And this is why Shionagi is often said to be the true foundation of Aikido, the way of harmony. The final move is Suoriwaza, and it refers to practicing all of these Aikido positions while sitting down. In practice, Aikido students accomplish this by moving about on their knees. But to me, this is Aikido's very own version of Wu Wei, doing without doing, or the Jewish Sabbath, remembering the sacredness of rest and quiet and stillness, or the Buddhist practice of sitting still and meditating, or Christianity's doctrine of grace, if there's nothing we can do or need to do to be saved. Ultimately, you must forget about every technique, Master Ueshiba said. The further you progress, the fewer teachings there are. The great path is really no path. And so these are the habits Aikido practitioners practice. Facing what is before us, moving toward our challenges, looking at things from our challenger's perspective, being open-minded and inclusive of others, and stillness. So to me, this is a good recipe for living life, and is why I still consider myself a student and practitioner of Aikido, and it is why any of us can put the way of harmony into practice.
Before our final song, I wanted to put out a call for any instrumentalists. We like to have people who can accompany the choir. We love soloists. You could put together a duet if you wanted. We like guitars, any of the strings, flutes, anything. It's always nice to have a variety of music up here. So if you have any interest, talk to Deb when she is back soon. So our final song is a Buddhist-inspired song filled with loving kindness, number 1031, and we sing it 3 times. So it's for yourself, for others, and for all of us. May I be filled with
As we depart today, I leave you with words from the Passover Haggadah. May the light we now kindle inspire us to use our powers to heal and not to harm, to help and not to hinder, to bless and not to curse, to serve you, Spirit of freedom. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.